That's not this.
Yeah.
And that's not, newbies especially need to know.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know. So hopefully people will be popping on any second, and you can let us know that you're here and that our tech is working, because it's never a Facebook Live without a tech check and at least one tech challenge. There we go. Hello, whoever's out there. Please pop a comment in so we can check that our comments are working, and let us know where you're watching from. And if you have any audio or any other difficulties, before we dive into what's going to be one of our most exciting, most prop-filled, unbelievable Facebook Lives for the Expo. Hi, Debbie. You're not late. We're just getting rolling. LJ and Bodie from New Hampshire. Hello, hello. So, and Nicole, Florida. All right. Sounds like we're working in New Hampshire, Kentucky, and Florida.
Yay.
We should be in good shape. So welcome everyone. I'm Dr. Lori Koger, running these Facebook Lives with my amazing Healthy Dog Expo sponsors. If you have not gotten your ticket to the expo, please visit healthydogexpo.com, and the link will be popping in periodically in the chat, so you can grab your ticket. There's also a mystery gift if you can figure out how to claim it. It's not that hard. Just go around the website. You'll see the clue. My guest today is Ruby, who is one of the founders of Real Dog Box. And when she came at me with this topic, I was like, gee, wonder how she's going to go about this. I did not know it was going to involve props and modeling and everything, and creativity and arts and crafts. So, Ruby, what prompted this amazing idea?
We're going to be talking about poop today. And believe it or not, I probably have more poop photos from our customers than photos of their actual dogs.
I can appreciate that.
And it's such a taboo topic among humans. Like, we're so embarrassed to say that we're having stomach problems or diarrhea or digestive issues. But in my opinion, it's one of the most important topics that comes to monitoring our dog's health, knowing when things are going wrong or when they're going right. And because in our boxes, we do a different monthly combination and a lineup, we're introducing new foods to dogs all the time, which is great. It's something that we encourage them to do slowly.
Variety is your friend.
Yes. But one thing that we need to prepare them for is that there's going to be changes in their stool when you feed new foods. And a lot of times for people transitioning from dry food to fresh food, or just, feeding a pig ear that they've never fed before, they freak out when they see, oh my gosh, my dog's stool is soft, or it's yellow. Is it supposed to be like that? And so I want to just start talking about the output, the poop that comes out, and what we should expect and what we can do to make some adjustments when there are things that don't seem like they're right.
And, your point is well taken. We are embarrassed to say, I ate too much spicy food last night and I have heartburn, or,
right,
gas, or God forbid we say diarrhea. But we follow our dogs around with a video camera.
Yeah.
And video the whole experience.
Exactly.
Or take an assortment of photos. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. And, our dogs can't articulate to us when they're not feeling well. And so we have to look at these clues, and their poop tells us so much more than anything else. One of the new products that we have coming out next month is our beautiful lamb ears with the fur on. And it dawned on me that people are going to feed this and see some hair come out of their dog's butt and freak out.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's just talk about the whole thing, because there's not just lamb ear in the next box. There's also chicken hearts, which I have here, and a few other things that, you know what, when you feed this, your dog's poop's going to look like this. But if you feed something else, it might look a little bit different. So I've got the whole spectrum here, and I'm ready to go through it, and ask me questions as we're going along.
Yeah.
Really fun.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Well, I'll start with this. This is our brand new poop inspector cheat sheet. And we talk about the 5 different ways to monitor your dog's poop. So quantity, consistency and content, shape, and color. And if you guys are our members, we just got these printed and we're going to start sending these out in the next box that comes out next week. So keep an eye out for that, because this pretty much tells you everything you need to know what to expect and some of the changes that you can make when there are unexpected changes.
This is my world coming in.
I see you're in the poop.
Yeah, you will. And crafters that have, bits of yarn or other decorative things, scrapbookers, dogs eat that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, they're all over our floor. We just don't realize it.
Yeah. And did you ever hear of sparkle dog food?
I think so. That was a couple years ago, right?
2 years back. And it was owned by one of the Real Housewife franchise actresses. And it was dyed pink and there was sparkles in it. And literally your dog pooped pink sparkles. And it's like, okay, I guess this made the person happy. And I mean, it was a very mediocre quality kibble with typical grocery store kibble, but pink dye and sparkles.
Well, exactly. And that's what we are going to expect when we start switching them from a dry brown pellet diet, which is going to be the same food, same poop every day. And then once you start introducing these other things, you're like, oh, stuff's changing. And that's okay. It's a good thing.
It is.
Yeah. But let's talk about what we're going to expect. So first things first, quantity. That's one of the first things that we see people notice changing when they switch from dry food to fresh food. Typically, you've got these larger, sort of stinkier poops when you're kibble fed. And then fresh food is going to bring that down to a small, moist, and compact poop. So exhibit number 2, number 1 right here, is going to be our small, moist, and compact poops. And notice they are different colors, so they will change based on what your dog is eating.
And I'll just mention these are made of Play-Doh.
I know, I'm like right here. And I usually look for the consistency of one larger log like this, followed by a smaller segment. And that tells me that they're firm, they're solid, but they're also a little bit moist, and it's all coming out in one sort of block. One thing that I learned yesterday or recently is that these small dry pellets are very common when switching to a pre-made raw. And that's usually because there's a lot of bone content in the food, a lot of pre-made raw. So these are drier than I would like, but expected on a pre-made. Is that something that you've seen before?
Yeah, I think so. And, the finer grinds as opposed to, things that are chunked, or when you're feeding some other things on top of a pre-made, less likely. But the dogs still seem to pass those without straining. They don't seem uncomfortable.
Yep.
But they plunk when they hit the ground.
Yes, they do plunk. Yeah. I've seen that quite a bit, and we'll talk about too much bone here in a second. While we're talking about consistency, these are my ideal poops, the first 2 that I showed you. What I tend to see when a dog is making the transition is something a little bit looser. Play-Doh is hard to make moist after it's been sitting for a while, but if you can imagine sort of like a poop that is soft serve, like, it's starting to not hold its shape.
When you get your pooper scooper out, it kind of just smears.
Yes. And so now we're going down from ideal to maybe something's wrong, or we're going through a transition. And then what we don't want to see is something like this soft serve fly infested poop right here.
Oh, those are flies. Yes.
Flies, because it's stinky.
Yes, it's
something's wrong. Yeah, all the way down to diarrhea, which that's a beautiful. It's just like that.
You get a 10 for the crafts.
I will let Taylor know. She helped me put these together.
Yeah.
But this is something that I tend to see so often when people are feeding new foods because they don't think about the slow transition. Usually, as you know, younger dogs are a little bit more resilient. So they're going to be able to make adjustments a lot faster. But when you're switching your dog or introducing new foods, all of a sudden, when they're 5 years old, their body doesn't always know how to process. Right. And, instead of starting off with a small amount, usually my recommendation with a new food is to feed the size of their paw. That's it. That's all you want to start with. So like chicken hearts, for example, I'm just going to, I've got a bigger palm, but imagine your dog's paw is about that big. Start with that. And that's it. Mm-hmm. That's enough for the new food. And then you just wait and you watch their stools. Everything looks good. All right. Add a little bit more. Maybe we're going to do 3 today instead of 2.
Yeah.
So, we tend to see softer stools when they're transitioning or introducing a new food. And I think that's completely normal. And I want everyone to expect that. It's okay. And it's no cause to sort of trip up on that. After quantity, size, and consistency, then we start getting into the shape and the contents of it. And the contents and color are really just a reflection of what your dog is eating.
Right.
Anybody here feed leafy greens or catch their dogs eating grass? Yeah. If so, you're probably going to expect to see some green in there.
Or the people who treat with baby carrots.
Yes.
Those will pop right out at you.
Yep. Well, I usually find that dogs that aren't chewing them, they're going to come out the same way that they're going in. Sure. Kind of like corn.
Yeah, kind of.
But the other thing I see, so we're talking about color, is when dogs are eating poultry, we tend to see yellow, orange colored poops, kind of like this. I'm not sure if you can see that yellow in there.
Yeah.
This is probably not the best representation, but we posted this recently on our Instagram, and someone said, well, not just poultry, but also pumpkin. If you're feeding a lot of pumpkin or maybe carrots, you might find that they're coming out in this orange color. As well as green. Leafy greens, a little bit of grass is going to cause that to look green. And I wanted to actually challenge you today, Dr. Kozer, to tell us, there are certain clinical signs that might mean that your dog has issues based on these colors. And I'm talking about the good stuff, which is like if you're feeding different foods, you might see this, but these colors might also mean that there's something wrong with your dog. Mm-hmm. For example, I've seen that too much yellow in the stool might be a sign of pancreatitis. It might be that there's too much fat in the diet.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you've seen before?
Pancreatitis, no, because usually those dogs are so sick acting, we see them long before. And the owners don't tend to bring stool samples in there because they're often vomiting.
Okay.
That's the first sign, and so they're in there before. But certainly the fat, we'll sometimes see a mucus coating.
Yes. Yep.
And
this is our mucus covered poop.
You're awesome. You are awesome.
I've seen the mucus covered poop, especially during the transition.
Yeah, it's reflective of the rate of passage of food through the GI tract. We'll also sometimes see gray poops.
Mm-hmm.
Into gray?
Yep, I've got gray and greasy right over here. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of those dogs will be exocrine pancreatic insufficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Half the time they're German Shepherds and they just don't produce enough enzymes. And the poop will look gray.
Yeah, that's something that we often get. I have a German Shepherd and she has a sensitive tummy.
Yep.
I do.
Yeah, that's a common scenario.
Yeah. So these are sort of the different colors, and I want people to recognize them, but also not have a heart attack or panic when something is a different color, even though we're saying this could be a sign of pancreatitis, or maybe green means there's a gallbladder issue. Mm-hmm. The other thing that we see often is a darker sort of black stool.
Mm-hmm.
which I know can happen when you feed a lot of red meat or there's too much organ in the diet. So one of the things that is easy to overfeed is something like a liver treat. You know, they're dark in color, they're very nutrient dense, and people will often, you know, feed too much at once, or their dog gets into it.
Yeah, the dog gets into it.
Yeah.
So when they used to, you could buy like ground up meat that was marked with charcoal so that it wasn't for human consumption. That charcoal would pass through and produce a black stool.
Yep.
That process is not as common these days as it used to be.
Yeah, I've seen that, the charcoal denaturing. Every now and then, when we find a new vendor, they'll say, we've got to denature our product because the purpose is so that it doesn't enter the human food supply chain. And you see that black and you're like, oh, this looks wrong. This shouldn't be here.
Yeah, people are less likely to eat it.
Yeah. Although, I mean, when you see something like this, I can't imagine that you're going to try to eat this either.
True, true.
Okay, so we talked about a bunch of different colors. The one we haven't talked about yet is the white. The white. Yeah.
Probably the most common.
Yes, especially among raw-fed dogs. The white poop comes around when there's too much bone in the diet. And, you know, we carry boneless chews and bone-in chews. This is one of our big turkey necks right here, which has a decent amount of bone in the inside. You can see that.
Yeah.
You know, it depends obviously on the size of your dog and how accustomed they are to consuming bone. The good thing about bone is if there's too much, your body can't absorb it. They don't need it. It's just going to pass right through. But what does it look like when it passes? Oftentimes it's not bone fragments. It just makes your dog's poop really white and chalky and even like just break apart.
And it has zero odor.
Yes.
Those white bone poops, you know, they just crumble into the ground and you can't smell anything on them, which is delightful.
Yeah. Well, and I've also noticed with raw-fed dogs, usually after 24 hours, like with a nice, ideal brown, solid poop, it will turn white very, very quickly.
Sure.
Yeah. And so we don't want it to be white when it's coming out, but if it turns white after 24 or 48 hours, you know, they pooped in your backyard, then that's normal too. But there's some quick fixes to this as well. And the reason why I see the drier or white chalky stools with dogs that are on pre-made raw is because, you know, when you're switching to a new food, when you're a company and someone is switching their dog to your food, you don't want them to have digestive upset. So you often will see a bunch of things added, like some sort of fiber, you know, marshmallow root or slippery elm is a common one. In our case, we like to add fur into our meatballs for that source of fiber. But oftentimes that bone content is a little more than they actually need so that your dog's stool, when making this transition, is going to be firmer. Like they're not going to have soft stools. That is very common among pre-made brands. And if, you know, you're buying one, you should be able to ask the maker how much bone content each of these grinds have. But a quick fix, in my opinion, is just to go ahead and add a little bit of muscle meat to offset that bone content if it's too much for your dog.
Yeah. And, you know, if it can happen just one day if your dog has a recreational bone and winds up chewing a lot of that. And that will just resolve itself as you go back to your regular feeding plan.
Yep, exactly. I don't know what's interesting about some of the recreational chews, at least in my dog's case, is he will pass a whole piece of bone.
Sure.
You know, and that just means that his body didn't need it, couldn't break it down, or didn't need to absorb it. And I find that that's really, really common among people who are just starting out to introduce different things into their dog's diets.
Yeah, definitely. So, and this is interesting. Well, this is something well known to veteran raw feeders, that just the volume goes way down.
Yeah.
All of a sudden there's less poop. It's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
A beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's something that I think is one of the best parts in terms of being on the dog parent or owner side of things. You know, it's you don't have to worry about carrying that stinky bag of poop around. Or
yeah. Yeah.
I read a story a little while back when I first started feeding raw about this gentleman who, you know, he had to catch a flight, and he took his dog out for a walk, put the bag of poop in his pocket, ends up going through security, getting on the plane, and arriving at his destination, and he's got.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. That is incredible.
Yeah, no, it happens. What else did I want to show you that I have out here on my prop? So I've got my chicken heart and my pig ear. So the other reason I wanted to pull these out is because some foods are going to be higher in fat content. Oftentimes you can see it. This is one of our pig ears, and there's fat right there. Or in the chicken heart, same thing. There's a little fat cap right there.
Yeah.
So what does that mean when you feed this food? What can you expect? Usually, if they're not accustomed to that amount of fat, we tend to see that the stools are a little bit softer, a little bit looser, and yellow in color.
Mm-hmm.
And now, again, nothing wrong with that. How do you fix it? Besides the fur on chews, we usually say increase the bone content or the slippery elm bark or marshmallow root. Somebody told me recently, it was Miss Rita Hogan. She's a canine herbalist, and she said that slippery elm is endangered. And that's why I've been recommending marshmallow root.
How is slippery elm in danger, I wonder?
I don't know how. I mean, it's a tree, and I'm not sure if it's.
Is there some sort of elm blight or disease that is spreading? Now we have to research, guys.
Yeah, I have no idea. But what she said was try marshmallow root first. And while that might not be effective for all dogs, it's a good starting point as a source of fiber. And then if it doesn't work, then go ahead and try the slippery elm.
Yeah, and you've got to have an alternative if you can't get slippery elm.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. What else do you recommend?
I will use some of the, well, the first thing I use is a 12 to 24 hour fast, not in water. You know, let the system rest.
Yes.
But I will also use the Olivo carrots or rootsies, which are pelleted root vegetables, or you can get carrots or you can get beets. And it's a natural fiber source, very clean, GMO free, easy to add because it's in, essentially it looks like guinea pig pellets. And you can add that to a bland diet or some bone broth and have pull things together nicely.
Yep. You said two things that reminded me. Bone broth is one of the big things for me, especially when our dogs are, they have dry poops. So they're likely to be dehydrated or even constipated, or you're trying to eliminate soft stools. And that's for me, like, fortunately, I have a dog that self-regulates when he has enough stomach. So he fasts himself. He's just like, I'm not eating. I'll drink some water and that's about it. But bone broth is something that I almost always have on hand. And then the other thing you mentioned was beets. And I don't know about you, but when I eat beets, it sometimes is very scary looking at the toilet before
those beautiful pigments in the beets will pass through.
Yep. I've got a red streaked poop here, which could be from eating beets or feeding beets, but it could also mean some bleeding and inflammation in the lower digestive tract of our dogs. I've always seen inflammation when a transition is made a little bit too quickly. And so usually when it's a bright red color, that's not too much of a cause for concern, because that just means that there's something going on down there and it's much lower. But when we've got those darker tarry poops, that could also be a sign of some other gastrointestinal bleeding higher up in the digestive tract.
Yes. And one of my team is on the job.
Yes.
We now know that the native habitats are being targeted for development. And
Oh,
gosh, you know, the trees have no lumber value, but my God, they have herbal value.
yeah. I wonder, where are they native to? Team, sorry. I have so many questions
On to
now.
part two. He's cracking the whip on you guys. They'll be on it. They
Yeah.
are always on it.
Yeah,
But that's terrible, you know, and it happens with plants that are used for essential oils as well. You know, all of a sudden their habitat is being invaded by whether it's disease or humans or what have you.
yep.
And yeah, well, there we go.
Well, and I'm a little bit new to the herbal world.
Mhm.
I know that for years there's been so many different cultures that have relied on herbs for
Yeah.
their source of medicine. In fact, my partner Turk, he said growing up when they were not well, they wouldn't go to the doctor; they would go to the herbalist, and
Mhm.
then the doctor and the pharmacist. But the herbalist was always their first step. Right now, our dog is dealing with some bladder stone issues, and I've been working with Rita Hogan.
Yeah.
I, the recommendation from our conventional vet and the nephrologist that came across the stones was to get surgery and get on a prescription diet. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
So I asked Rita to help me out, and she's got this amazing herbal infusion,
Mhm.
which includes all of these different things that a few things I hadn't even heard of, to support the kidneys and the livers and the entire digestive tract. And I've seen the difference in just a couple of weeks. And that's one of the hard things with herbal medicine. They often will take longer
Yes.
than just going in and scooping those stones out to get
Right.
rid of.
Well, and one thing to remember with dogs specifically, unlike cats, urinary stones are typically secondary to infection, not to urine pH.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a veterinarian who's trying to put a dog on, you know, unless it's a certain type of crystal, a specific urinary diet to raise or lower the pH, no. You need to look for causes of infection that cause a nidus to something to clump up that then the stone gets built on.
Yep.
That's, yes, straight pH problem, generally speaking.
Yeah. And that's like severe dehydration from.
Dehydration is always a factor with cats, especially those fed dry food. I mean, and most cats are fed dry food, completely biologically inappropriate.
Yeah.
They produce super concentrated urine and they don't urinate often, so the pH tends to go up. They then form struvite crystals and it just cycles downhill from there.
Yeah.
But dogs typically are secondary to infection. So removing them is great if you need to. And if you have a male dog, often you would want to, because those tiny stones can get stuck in the urethra and then you have a we can't pee situation.
Yep.
But, you know, generally speaking, you're not going to dissolve them effectively with diet. So surgery does wind up being a common option.
Yeah, that's where we are right now. He's got a cystine stones, which is the rarer stone.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And, I'm doing my best to.
Well, prescription diet isn't going to do diddly squat for cystine. So good on you for holding your ground.
Well, we'll see. We've got a follow-up ultrasound in 6 weeks. And hopefully we'll see if we have made any progress with that. But, I can see the progress in his ability to urinate. I mean, it's
okay.
And these are the things. It's so funny. I'm talking to Rita, and she's like, what's the stream like? Like I'm from 1 to 5, and she's like, do you feel comfortable looking at that? And I'm like, I'm all up in there every day.
She's here holding a lamb ear, for Pete's sake, and making poop out of Play-Doh.
Yes.
We live in the real world here. But I have clients who, if I say, we're going to feed raw and I want to use oysters to get a certain mineral in, I have people who say I can't feed oysters because when I was a kid, my father was a fisherman and he got sick from eating oysters. It's like, and that has to do with what? Feeding your dog?
Right.
But, so I understand where she's coming from with saying, are you okay with this?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's why I try to talk so openly about things that are usually uncomfortable to talk about,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
because these are the questions that we should be asking each other to make sure that you're on the right track.
Exactly. Exactly.
One of the markers that we talk about in our nutrition course is, starting off with a solid blood panel when your dog's really young. So that way you can see whether things are off, how much they've changed when you've changed their diet as they've gotten older. But the other thing, we talk about that. We talk about hair analysis tests, microbiome tests. But as you mentioned, just looking at their stools, like that's right in front of you.
Every day.
Yep.
We did get an answer on our slippery elm question.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, ladies. So this is a northeastern tree.
Oh, that's your neck of the
That's
woods.
my neck of the woods. And yes, people are flocking to these states. And suburbia the urban environment is spreading out, suburbia then secondarily spreading out. So, geez, I'm going to have to see if I can plant one in my backyard.
Yeah.
Everybody, this is what we're going to do. We're going to find out, and maybe we'll put slippery elm seeds in your expo gift bags.
Ooh.
Awesome. Everybody could have their own little slippery elm tree.
I wonder what harvesting is like.
I don't know. I have so many questions.
Me too. I know. This is a budding business venture.
Budding, haha. That was really bad. Really bad. But yes, so when you talk to Rita Hogan, ask her what she knows about planting these trees. I'll reach out to my people.
Yeah.
And, let's bring back the slippery elms.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we need to. And I think I've been using marshmallow root myself.
And you've been happy?
Yeah. And I mean on myself, like when my stomach doesn't feel well, I will make my own marshmallow root tea, and it works. It works.
Well, and Dr. Becker is always making infusions and teas that she swears by.
Yep.
So yeah. And we have a request from my team.
Oh.
They want you just mentioned your nutrition course. They want a few more details.
Sure. So we've got our Real Dog Box as our product subscription service. And the Feed Real Institute is where we host our online nutrition course and live workshops. Truth be told, the reason why we wanted to create our own nutrition course was for internal purposes. I wanted to be able to train our new staff to speak confidently about nutrition to everyone that was coming to us for transition tips. And we took a lot of different courses. One of them was the Cassie course, and that tends to be, I think, the most popular one. It's just been around for so long.
Sure.
And then there are a handful of other raw feeding courses. But what was missing for us was the practical aspect of it, which was, there's so many that are very academic, which is great, especially if you want to get into the business of canine nutrition. But for an everyday, dog parent who is wanting to transition to fresh food, those courses really did nothing in the way of, okay, now how do I take what I've learned in this textbook and apply it to my real life?
Right.
And so we started out creating just one course specifically for dog parents and nutrition advocates who wanted to become professional nutritionists. And then we realized really quickly that wasn't going to work. We're like, one is just too high level while the other is in the nitty gritty. And so we split up the courses. So we now have two different ones. The dog parent nutrition course is currently available and on feedreal.com. And we basically start from dog anatomy, nutritional requirements, and then we start going into AFCO and NRC guidelines. What does that mean? What do I need to be putting into my dog's diet to make sure I'm meeting their nutritional needs? And then we talk about, all right, let's talk about how we really do it. How do we put it all together? Where do you go to find all of this food? What are some cost saving tips for me so that I can, not break the bank while trying to keep my dog healthy?
Right.
Yeah, so we've got that dog parent nutrition course available now, and then raw feeding week, which I think Kimberly must have coined that a few years ago.
She did.
It's the first week of April. We plan on launching the professional nutrition course, which includes some more in-depth scientific research, the things that veterinarians and other professionals want to be able to rely on as they're helping their clients go through a fresh food transition. Because here's the thing, they're going to do it anyway. True. And we want to be able to support them. That's one of the reasons our consultations became so popular was because people were coming to us that said, my vet doesn't support raw food. And so I don't know what to do, but I want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's just so sad for me because I think we all know some of the benefits of fresh food, but I think as a veterinary professional, and correct me if I'm wrong, like we want to be able to answer the questions that our clients are asking us and not send them away.
Right.
And one of the things we focus a lot on both courses is working with your veterinary team while you're making this transition to fresh food. Don't shut them out, ask for that blood panel, start feeding the food, check it every year and make sure you're on track.
Yeah, definitely. And be respectful and realize that your conventional vet is inundated with propaganda from kibble companies and various organizations about how there's bacteria everywhere and, everyone's going to die after they sue everybody else over E. coli and salmonella. Truth be told, if raw food was so dangerous, there would be no slaughterhouses, no butchers, no chefs, because none of them would survive. Raw food is not dangerous.
Yep.
And, somebody, I just want to sometimes take my colleague and shake them and say, how do you think you're alive if the world is so contaminated?
Right.
But they listen to the drug companies. They listen to the food companies.
Yeah. And we did have a conventional vet take our course, and she was actually very early on in her practice, which was nice because still a little malleable, open-minded, willing to listen. And she shared that was one of the biggest deterrents for her because she'd learned in school that, raw food is going to have bacteria. But one of the things that no one ever talks about is that bacteria is everywhere. Like it's in us, it's on us. It's going to be present wherever we go.
Yeah. I don't know. Are you hearing a truck backing up?
Yeah, it's mine.
It's your, okay. They're loading in some fresh materials. That's good. Because the end of my street, behind my back and across the road, there is a dead end, and then it goes around in a cul-de-sac. So I often have trucks backing up literally in front of my house.
We've got a pallet of duck heads coming in today.
Yes. Yeah. What are you doing today, duck heads?
Yeah. Yesterday we were making poops.
How many pounds are in a pallet?
Anywhere from 1,200 to 1,500.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
1,500 pounds of duck heads, guys. That's a lot.
It's a lot of heads.
Yeah. So my team has another question for you. What's the time commitment? How long does the average person spend going through the materials, do you think?
Well, for our professional course, we did, since we're asking for race accreditation, CEs, we submitted between 80 and 100 hours on that professional course. If you're working on it full time, you could probably blow through it in about 2 weeks. But, if you're a full-time worker and you're just doing this after you get home from work, I'd say it probably takes about 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. And it really depends where you are on your journey. I found when I first started feeding raw almost a decade ago that there was everything, like these blogs and then Facebook groups, and like you could sort of find all this information, but it wasn't in one central location.
Right.
And there often would be no scientific study to accompany the claim that, I don't know, dogs have no dietary need for carbohydrates.
Right, right.
You know? And so we try to put that all in one place. And if you're already familiar with some of those things, you'll probably run right through the first and second unit. If you're just starting out, though, we do really go into depth about the different vitamins, minerals, the whole food sources, the difference between synthetic supplements and natural supplements, and supplementing with purpose. So
that's perfect.
For some people, I think they'll say, oh, I already know about this. I know about, this raw feeding model and why fruits and veggies can be beneficial. Well, you have other people who are, diehard prey model raw feeders that are probably need to learn some of these basics.
Right. Yeah. And better to put the basics in there than to be wanting them.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, we've gone through several updates already. We're constantly updating our articles as we find out new information. And one of the great things about the professional course is that it also comes with a live workshop where you get to come in here and make your food all together, with a small group of like 7 or 8 people, and you just talk it through. So that way, if you are a vet or you're someone that wants to become a consultant to help people through their journey, you know how to do it. You've touched the food yourself. You've gotten your hands dirty. And that's the practical component that I think is missing from all of the other courses out there.
Yeah, that practical, that sourcing, that mixing, that, seeing what does a duck neck look like.
Yep.
That's priceless.
Yeah. We're working on a new directory on feedreal.com source. So it has like all of the Asian markets, which will often have your duck feet and duck necks.
Right.
Some of the Latino markets and co-ops sort of all in one place. So you could just put in your zip code and
see what's there.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Different parts of the country have different ethnic markets, and you can find amazing variety.
Yep, exactly.
That'll be very cool.
I'm excited for it. Yeah. And we're going to have some of these specials available at the Healthy Dog Expo when we come in there.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll have to talk after we wrap, and because give away all the secrets yet. But yeah, there'll be some special things, and maybe even I'm assuming Wi-Fi will be covered where you guys are going to be. People can sign up for the course right at the expo.
Yep. I don't want to give away all of our specials.
Yeah. But yes, there will be those. So any other questions, guys? Let me just check in here. Remember, if I missed your question before, after so many comments come in, I can't go back further. So repost if you need to. Pamela went to her vet yesterday. He loved the dog's condition, but can't be bothered for his own dogs. Well, you can lead a horse to water, and everybody comes into this in their own time.
Yep.
So just keep showing him your healthy, long-lived dogs. That's all we can do.
Yeah. I mean, I was chatting with Gary from Darwin's, and we were talking about our background stories, and just about every person that I've met in this industry has a dog that was sick, and we healed them through food.
Yep.
And so it's easy for us to talk about it and be very passionate. It's harder for someone who's never seen that transformation to want to make the switch.
Yeah. Well, and they think it's a big deal because there is a bit of a learning curve at first.
Yeah.
And, if you've got to invest in, you're a busy vet professional, it's like, one more thing to learn. But once you learn it, it's yours. You own it. It's easy.
Yeah. Well, that's why I need to get some CEs for this course, because if they're like, I'm going to get credit. And
exactly. It becomes becomes very motivational.
Yes.
So great.
Next week, we are headed to the APVMA, the pre-vet medical conference. These are students who are considering vet school, and so excited because we're going to offer some courses to them as a discount, because it's all of the universities that are going to be attending. And my goal is really it's not to have them be gung-ho about raw feeding from the start. It's just to plant these seeds and know that it's out there. And, hopefully they find the value in learning about nutrition and fresh food early on, so that they can prepare themselves for when they do start practicing questions that they are going to get inevitably.
Yeah, definitely. And the sooner we can expose them, the better.
Yep.
So, Ruby, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day and spending hours and hours making these amazing models. And going down to the Toys R Us and getting the Play-Doh.
Yeah, I'm going to be putting together some videos now that I have these out. But
do you remember the videos that people would shoot frame by frame and make the little clayman move? Are you going to do that?
No.
Those were awesome.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, that's what are they called? There's a name for it. I can't remember.
Claymation or clay motion, something like that. They have a little clever little term.
No, I do. And I have to give credit to my assistant, Taylor, who actually spent her day yesterday making these poop models.
That is great. Taylor, you rock. All right. Well, thank you guys. I think I'm going to be meeting with your veterinarian on a live next in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Dr. Ruth, right?
Yeah. With Kay Stewart. Did you already meet Kay Stewart? Yeah.
No, that's on the upcoming schedule. So
perfect.
So stay tuned, guys, for more info on the course in a couple of weeks. You know where the announcements are up, and you will have all sorts of new things to learn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Guys.